Hello, everybody. This is Own Your Unique Design with me and Tana. And I am so excited to introduce Tana to you today. Tana is a previous client of mine. She is a nurse coach and she came into Confidence Through Emotional Mastery. And now she is helping women to own their unique design through temperament. So I think this is really going to resonate with a lot of us today. So say hello to us in the chat if you're here live. If you're watching this on the replay, just drop the word replay and feel free to chat amongst yourselves, drop questions in the chat. We will be checking and just want to say thanks for being here with us today. All right. And if you are new here, if you don't know me, I'm 𝗬𝗪𝗠𝗀𝗇. I'm an emotional mastery coach, a nurse, a single mother to 3 boys, and I help women create confidence through emotional mastery. Helping women to become the heroes in their own story is really where it's at for me. So Tana, working with temperament in this way, is totally aligned to be in here. And I'm so excited because even I'm curious about what it is she's doing. So I can't wait for her to share. So with that said, Tana, thank you so much for being here with all of us today. And I'm really excited. And why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone and let us know a little bit about you, a little bit about your journey from nursing to coaching and how you got here with us today.
Thanks, Amy. I'm excited to be here with everybody. I have been a nurse for quite a while. I started my career like most people did, most nurses do, in acute care. It was in a small rural hospital, and I absolutely loved it because I spent a lot of time with the geriatric population, and it was just a place that was just really shaped me because the stories and the wisdom that they shared with me were just wonderful, and it was just a blessing to care for them. And then, of course, I had a family. I have a daughter and a son, and I stepped away from nursing when they were younger so I could be home with them. But when I returned to nursing, I went to a small Catholic clinic, and we were also a pregnancy resource center. I worked for a nurse practitioner. And as I worked there, things started to begin to shift. I just noticed we were often prescribing medications, but not doing any education or any teaching. And when I think back, it's like we missed the whole boat on what we now call lifestyle medicine. And looking at that, even the basic nursing interventions we missed, or I missed when I was in a clinic setting. And at the same time, I was going through my own health journey and challenges. And I found that the holistic practices such as prayer, nutrition was a big factor, movement, stress management, and rest were the things that actually moved the needle for me and helped me to feel better. And they also aligned with my faith. They felt more supportive versus submissive for me. And they obviously didn't come with the side effects like most medications did. So, and then I first found nurse coaching back in 2014. It was just tucked inside of a holistic nursing book. And that was just a short little chapter. And I think it was about the time that it was being discovered and being put out in the world. And it really resonated with me, but at the time timing was just not perfect for me at that point. And so it wasn't until 2021 that I took the training to become a nurse coach, became board certified, and really started to delve into this work. And then it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I really found another layer to holistic health, which was the temperaments. And I just began noticing patterns in myself and in other people and how differently we respond and process and carry things. And understanding my temperament gave me a language that I had felt my whole life. It helped me to see how God intentionally designed myself and others. When I started integrating the temperaments into my one-on-one coaching, I watched clients experience the same clarity and compassion that they had for themselves that I had found. And so today in my work, I blend my nursing background, holistic practices, a little bit of nervous system regulation, and then the beauty of how God designed us. It's the foundation of what I call seeds, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And it's the heart of the movement that I'm building. It's just helping women become regulated, rooted, and restored so they can live the way that God designed them to live.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a lot. Like it sounds like very holistic. And the thing that stood the most out to me was right off the gate, you mentioned lifestyle medicine, and maybe people here don't even know what that means, right? So just kind of tell us, what is lifestyle medicine? What does that mean? And like explain to us what the temperaments are and what that means as well.
So lifestyle medicine is basically rooted in in 6 pillars. So it's nutrition, exercise or movement, stress management, toxic load. Oh goodness. Say that. There's 6 pillars of what lifestyle medicine looks at.
Okay.
And then they focus more on preventative. So they're not treating chronic diseases, though they do. And when they do look at chronic diseases, they're treating it through lifestyle. And it's very, I feel it's very holistic in nature because it takes us back to our roots of what we should be doing and what I feel that we've lost along the way.
Yeah. Like wellness, like is the word that's coming out for me. It's basically like staying well, staying healthy. And yeah, I think every nurse here would agree that our medical model is the sick care model. So it's not about lifestyle medicine. Okay. So we got lifestyle medicine and then the temperaments. Tell me about like the temperaments and what that even means.
So the temperaments are basically the way you're naturally designed to respond to the world. They're innate, and at its core, it's basically reflects who you are when all your hats come off. So when you're sitting at home in a chair by yourself, that is who you are. And the temperaments shape us and how quickly we respond, and how deeply we feel it, and how long that lasts or that experience will stay with us. And each temperament carries its natural contributions or strengths. And so that's basically how we show up and how we bless others because contributions come to us naturally. Sometimes we don't even notice our contributions or strengths unless somebody brings it up to us because they're so natural to us. But then again, our temperaments also come with the other side, which can be our weaknesses. But in reality, our weaknesses are just how we overuse or can overuse our strengths. So we also have internal and external triggers that are based in our temperaments. These can come from either past wounds, unmet needs, or lack of boundaries. But at the same time, every temperament also has ideal conditions and motivations. And those motivations can help us thrive in environments, rhythms, and just basically relational dynamics with other people. So in reality, temperaments are not a modern idea. Temperaments have been around since about 400 BC, when Hippocrates observed that people had different patterns. He connected these patterns with bodily humors or bodily fluids. Either they had an excess or a lack of, and that's where we get the strange names from. The classic names are choleric, melancholic, phlegmatic, and sanguine. And while the science has evolved over time, the core insight remains that people were wired differently, were designed differently, and those differences actually matter when we look at the root of them. So I'll just go over them real quick. What?
Yeah, can I just cut in? Are those
Yes.
four? Because I was going to say, are there names to the temperaments? Like, are there titles to them? And is that what you just shared?
Yep, those are the names of them.
Yeah, they do sound melancholic, like melancholy, melancholic. They sound, what are they, Latin in nature, did you say?
I would assume they're Latin. But if you think, so like people that have phlegmatic temperament, usually Hippocrates looked at it that there was something from the lungs. And so
Something from the
sanguine
what?
from the lungs, so like phlegm,
Okay.
and like
Mm-hmm.
sanguine would be something they had an excess or a lack of in the blood. And then it goes to black bile of the liver, of the melancholic, and then the choleric was the kidneys.
Okay.
So
So
that's how
like
she
when I'm sorry, I'm just thinking like when a woman comes in to work with you, does she take like a quiz or a test? Like how do we know what temperament she is?
um I'm getting pretty good at figuring it out, but there is a test that people can take.
Okay.
So but I'll go over them briefly right here, and so you can kind of see which ones maybe resonate with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to notice just what resonates with you, but don't think about it as a label, because this is just mainly a blueprint and a place for us to start.
Yeah.
Um, so some of you respond quickly and you'll take charge naturally, and you like clarity, movement, and results. But when things feel inefficient, then that's when the tension starts to rise. Um, and you might notice yourself thinking, oh, why is this taking so long? Odds are you're probably a choleric. Cholerics are usually fast moving, very goal oriented, very driven. They're extroverted in nature. And if you can think of a Winnie the Pooh character, that would be Rabbit.
Okay. I love that.
So, and then some of you feel things quickly too, but it comes out more outwardly. You process by talking, by connecting with others, and you're very expressive. You can also feel scattered and very overwhelmed when things come at you too quickly. These people are the sanguines. They're energetic, they're very positive, very influential. These are like the social butterflies. Um,
Mm,
they're very extroverted. And when you think of a Winnie the Pooh character, it's probably Tigger.
okay.
Sanguine is a Tigger. So moving on to the next one, some of you feel things deeply, but not always quickly. You hold on to things for a long time, a lot longer than you probably should. And sometimes when you hold on to things, it can look like overwhelm or just increase in your stress because you're ruminating on something. These people are the melancholics. They're very deep, they're very thoughtful, very detail oriented. These people are more introverted in nature, so they recharge by being alone or just having quiet time. And you can think of these people as like an eel when it comes to Winnie the Pooh character.
Like an
So,
Eeyore, is that what you
like
said?
Eeyore, the
Eeyore.
donkey in Winnie
Of
the
course,
Pooh, Eeyore.
Eeyore. He was kind
And
of
the
like
last
depressed
one,
a little bit, Eeyore, right? He was
yeah,
always kind of like sad and blue. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. And melancholics are actually more prone to depression
Yeah.
because they can spend a lot of time inwardly. So,
Mm,
and the last one, some of you are very naturally steady. You don't react quickly. You like peace, stability, and predictability. Um, but when there's too much of a demand or pressure, you may feel yourself just shutting down or withdrawing. These people are the phlegmatics. They're very steady, they're calm, they're very slow to react. Again, they're introverted, but the Winnie the Pooh character would be Winnie the Pooh. So that's the basics of the four temperaments right there and how you can see yourself. Do you recognize yourself in any of them?
Ah, I kind of recognize myself in a few of them. So is that normal to like maybe see yourself in a couple of them? I kind of see myself as I saw myself in the choleric, the sanguine, and the melancholic. But I'd say the melancholic and the sanguine probably the most, like between those two.
Those two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I am more of an introvert. I am prone to depression. That's definitely in my history. I do tend to think deeply, and it's like a delayed thing. It's always delayed. I always have to like take it and like think about it later. I can't be caught off guard with a conversation. Like it just doesn't work for me. So I actually think the melancholic, believe it or not, is kind of like,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, and usually people have a primary and a secondary.
Mm.
So that's why you may be feeling like you're drawn to a couple of them. For me, my primary is melancholic and my
Mm.
secondary is choleric. So I can see
Okay.
myself in both. So when it comes to like the sanguine, that's very very talkative, people oriented. I have no S in me. I have no no sanguine in me. It's one of those things that I have to develop when I want to be around people. I have to learn to communicate and talk and ask questions and
Mm.
so, but yeah, I'm always in awe in like the temperament classes that I teach when the sanguines are there because I'm like, wow, I wish I had as much energy and talkative but they're just wonderful to have so many different aspects of how God designed us.
Yeah. Okay. So I really like this because, and what this is kind of reminding me of is like I work with, I don't know if you remember in the course, but like I had you guys take a quiz on the Saboteur personality
Hmm.
patterns, right? And
Yeah.
then a strength test as well. And it was to see that your strengths and your weaknesses are kind of like on a spectrum. Now a lot of people are into human design. There's like kind of these things. So what I'm curious about is like, how does knowing the bucket you're in, right? Like now that I know, if once I know where I am at, how can I use this to help me like live a better life or create a better life? Like, what does this help us with?
It helps us just understand like how we experience stress, how habits that we form, whether they're good habits or bad habits. We can look at that. We
Hmm.
can also, um, basically, temperaments also have us look at like the pace that we live, the energy that we have, sensitivities. Even you can even see temperament in your relationships, whether it's at work or whether it's at home, whether it's with your kids. You can see those. Um, but knowing your temperament also helps you know what feels overwhelming for you, recognizing what is motivating for you, what feels threatening. And in those situations, you can be okay, like I can look at my strengths and be like, how can I overcome this better and develop a habit within my strengths? Or look at it as like, am I overusing something and that's causing a stress pattern in me? So an example I use is like a sanguine. One of a sanguine's strengths is they're very talkative. But the flip side of that is that they can be overly talkative, and that can be one of their weaknesses. If given
Hmm.
that in the right situation, it becomes a weakness. And so just recognizing that, oh, maybe I need to back off and live more in my strengths and not in my weaknesses. Um, and each temperament actually, when we look at like stress patterns, each temperament has predictable patterns. So like a melancholic will usually internalize, overthink, and withdraw.
Hmm.
A choleric will just push harder and harder and harder, and then it becomes a control factor, and then they just will react.
Hmm.
Sanguines will, when they feel stressed or overwhelmed, they will avoid, they will distract, or they will seek out connection, and that may cause them to overtalk because they are in a stress pattern. And the phlegmatic, they will just shut down and appease and numb. Phlegmatics are, like I said, they're very the peacemaker. They're great to have on a team, but they also personally will like step back. They don't like conflict. And so when that comes up, they automatically will just shut down. Um,
Hmm.
and when we think about like nervous system regulation, your temperament shifts normally into a wounded expression. And that's when that shadow side of our temperament can show up when our nervous system is dysregulated. And it's not because something's wrong with you, but it's because your body is trying to protect you from
Yes.
whatever that stress pattern is, how that stress pattern is showing up. It will just protect us and we fall into weakness, weaknesses quicker.
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious about, you mentioned how God has uniquely created us. And could you talk about that a little bit? Because we are all uniquely created. So, and then, right, we're talking about these temperaments, and right, when we think of nature versus nurture, right? So, like, well, like the way we came into the world. 𝗬𝗪𝗪 talks about this. He's like a world-renowned um, psychologist. He's written so many books, and he talks about how each child has a different relationship to the parent. Like each child, they say siblings grow up in different homes, even though they're in the same home. And he says there's three things at play. There's who that child is authentically, like who they are, who God created them to be, right? We were uniquely created by God. So what
Mm-hmm.
that child's temperament is, right? And
Right.
then who that parent is in the moment that that child is born, right? Because I'm not the same parent for this child that I am 2 years later. I'm a different parent. And then our dynamic together. So he kind of actually talks about this. And I'm just curious, like, how do we know how God uniquely created us? Um, like what's nature versus nurture, I think is kind of like what I'm asking a little bit.
Yeah. One thing that we do have to remember when we talk about nature versus nurture is that um, we were designed on purpose. It wasn't random, and we're not a copy of anybody. Um, and I think as women, we can spend so many years living a version of ourselves that we think we should be, which would be that, nature. I mean, that nurture part, I've been told this
Right.
is who I should be, and and what others expect me to be, and versus the temperament, which is you were designed for a purpose, and what other people say or think doesn't really matter. And when you lean into that temperament, into that design, things just become simpler and you understand your patterns better. um in every part of when we do start to lean into our design, we can think of it like a tree seed. You look at a seed and you're like, okay, you look at an acorn and that's going to grow into an oak tree. That's just nature, right? Um, but and that's how God created us. I mean, we are a unique seed and we are to grow into how He created us. There's always, that nature versus nurture, but when it comes down to the root of it, nature is going to take over if we allow it, instead of allowing the nurture part of it to control us.
Okay. How can we lean into that more? I think, because I think of your authentic self. Most women that are coming in for coaching want to know who they are authentically, aside from, right, all the conditioning and everything they learned
Mm-hmm.
and what people expect them to be. Um, I think of too, I know, a model I love is IFS, Richard Schwartz, Internal Family Systems. He
Yeah.
says that at our core, we are all the 8 C's, which is like confidence, clarity, connection, curiosity. Like that's who we are at our core, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
who we are authentically. Um, so I'm just curious, like, how can I know who I am authentically? And how can I, like, how can we simplify what is our authentic self versus what is our, like, kind of adapted self?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to a lot of just noticing, like asking the questions like, what comes naturally to me? What drains me?
Mm,
What environments help me thrive? Um, like I mentioned earlier, what strengths show up when you're not even trying? What do people thank you for? What patterns show up in your relationships and at work? I mean, are those positive or those negatives? Again, they're just how you're designed. It's how God shows you where He wants you to be. He doesn't give us our weaknesses and like our internal and external triggers and those things to shame us. He gives those to us to help us grow in virtue and recognize and lean on Him more and not less.
so
So,
it sounds like you're saying we can kind of follow our more authentic design by really leaning into kind of like what lights us up, like what we're naturally kind of maybe talented at or what brings us joy. Is that kind of like what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely that. It, and anything that other people thank you for, if you're always being thanked for being so loyal, so kind, so considerate, always being a good friend, just, those basic things that we take for granted, that's a sign of, one of part of our authentic self. Um,
Hmm.
and it's
I
just
think
part of the temperament as well.
I think there's so much mindset work to be done around that, especially for women, especially for nurses, because, right, I mean, if we just kind of like stereotyped nurses and nurse coaches, like empathy, compassion, right? Empathy and compassion, I would say are the two like strengths that I pretty much most nurses have, but they almost take them for granted. Like they don't even see them as valuable or as a
Hmm.
strength. They kind of just see that as like normal. And it's really, I know in my coaching container, it's quite a mindset job. It's quite a lot of work to really get them to shift their own thoughts around that as that being valuable to them. So it's like it's funny because I feel like a lot of this work, Tana, is like it's simple. Like it's not really so complicated. It's more like simple and it's more like recognizing that as your strength. Like I'm realizing that that is a strength, right? If someone like if to, oh well, the only thing people thank me for is that I'm a good listener, and that's not really like what is that? Like I'm not an art. They'll say like I'm not an artist, or I'm not like a movie star. Like they have this like preconceived notion of what a talent or gift should be, and that's not them because they're not that. Um, so yeah, so I'm just curious if you've noticed that in your container and like how you help people to see their own strengths as such.
Yeah, it comes up quite a bit just because, like you say, we as nurses, we are, we're supposed to be the compassionate one, the empathetic one. But sometimes that's not our natural. That's not what our temperament has us do, but we live in that because that's what we're told nurses are. Um,
Hmm.
and that doesn't necessarily, I mean, to some people, great, that comes really good. That's easy. It's good. They don't have a problem with it. But for other people, it's just this, say, the hat that they put on when they go to work. And versus,
Mm.
and then they take it off, and then maybe they're not so compassionate at home with their family, or they're not very empathetic all of a sudden and then all of a sudden it becomes the word burnout. I've just burned out, because I'm so compassionate and empathetic at home. I mean, at work, and then I come home and I just have to take that hat off because that literally drains you being the person that you weren't designed to be.
Yes, that makes sense. Also, like you said, we've only got so much energy in a bucket, so we can't be on all the time.
Hmm.
I always tell my kids that it's a privilege that your brother is mean to you. Like I actually say it means that this is where he feels the right. It's like we are our worst where we feel the safest. So like if your
Hmm.
kids are
Hmm.
really being bad inside the house, that's kind of where they're supposed to take it. Like I'm always grateful my kids are behaving at school and they're bringing their first selves home. Um, but I just want to, the last question I want to ask you is body, mind, and spirit, right? Because this temperament kind of
Hmm.
contains all three. How can we get them on the same team? I find that a lot of times they feel like they're on opposite teams, all right? My heart wants this, my mind wants this. Are they kind of naturally on the same team? What are your thoughts about that? I'm just so curious.
Oh man, I love this question. Because I believe we are designed to be on the same team. Our body, mind, and spirit are designed to interact with each other. Um, they're designed to be in alignment. I mean, we know when we like say we get the stomach flu and all of a sudden we just don't feel good and it affects our whole being. And just because it's affecting our gut, but it also affects our mind. And obviously when you're really sick, you don't pray as well. So there's just that whole part that, yeah, I think we're designed to be on the same team. And many of us are pulled in several different directions. So When I think about the body, I mean, the body needs safety. If the body doesn't feel safe, nothing really matters. The mind doesn't matter. The spirit doesn't matter. Everything goes out the window when our body isn't safe. So, the first step would be, when we think about our body, is to get it into a regulated state, which is either through, grounding practices, tapping, just breath work, just developing rhythms. And speaking of, when we speak of temperaments, we have to talk about, when we talk about daily rhythms, we have people who, the sanguines are very flexible. They love flexibility. Where melancholics, they're very rigid. They like a structure. And phlegmatics are even more structured. So when we talk about that, we have to talk about, which one works best for you. Just because I think, daily rhythm doesn't mean it's a structured environment. It may be something different for each temperament. So, so when the body feels safe, then it can stop sounding the alarm that we're not safe, and then it can start to listen. And then when we think about the body, the mind, I mean, not the body, the mind needs truth. So once the body is regulated, the mind becomes capable of receiving that truth and then receiving the truth instead of reacting out of fear. This is, when our body is safe and our mind is accepting truth, that's when we can start renewing our patterns. We can look at old stories. We can anchor our identity in who God created us to be. So a calm body makes space for a clear mind. And then when we add the spirit in, the spirit needs communion. So when the body is settled and the mind is clear, the spirit actually can respond to God. Prayer becomes an encounter. It's not an effort. We can lean towards virtues, and it becomes not a performance. So basically, integration of all three happens when the body says, I'm safe. The mind says, I'm loved and I know who I am. And the spirit says, I belong to God and I respond to him. So I think
I love that.
when all three of them, are harmonized, like we talked in the beginning, it's more like a holistic part of us. We're all one. So, and I mean, how do we get to that point? I mean, I feel like it just gets to the point of we just start listening again and noticing, what is my body needing in this moment? What is it telling me right now? What thoughts are driving me? Where is God inviting me to be in this? And I think when we begin to respond to all three, they will stop overriding each other and we can start to integrate them into one. And that just, when I kind of developed into that, that's where I developed what I use in my coaching. It's called a framework called SEEDS. Basically, it stands for like S. The first S is spiritual health. I mean, how do we honor and hear God naturally? The E is eating our nourishment. So how do we, are we feeling our body with, good foods, mood boosting, are we feeding it, a lot of processed foods that are increasing just overall stress patterns and inflammation in our body. The second E is exercise, which helps regulate our nervous system, but we also have to do it when it's in alignment with where we are. Daily rhythms, again, it's a place of either structure or flexibility, depending on whatever you need. And then the last S is the Sabbath, which basically is, are we focusing on rest? Are we focusing on physical rest, spiritual rest? Are we giving our mind rest? And when you put all of those together, it just the place for us to learn that can be our default to fall back on when all five of those are in harmony.
Spirit, nourish, exercise, daily rhythms, and the Sabbath. I really love that. I love this structure of it's very structured, but it makes sense. When you were talking about the body, mind, and spirit, I just got off a coaching call with a client and she had gotten very sick, and she had like days of vertigo, and it was just like this kind of downward spiral from there. And she pushed through, And she got on a call with a client when, she didn't want to because she was very sick. And she did all of these things. She didn't give her body the rest that it needed. And we did the deeper work, and there was like a real limiting belief inside of her that went all the way back to childhood, that like sick people are weak, right? And with a father who was like the God in her life, it was like he just, when anybody was sick in the house, he had like nothing to do with them. So like in order for her to please dad, she was always the one that wasn't sick and her brother always was. So she had this like real limiting belief inside of her that when I'm sick, I'm not valuable. When I'm sick, I lose love. Like when I'm sick, I'm a big burden to everyone else. It was a complete and total like fear of losing connection to herself and everyone else because of being sick. And it just kind of like her body being sick caused this whole downward spiral in like every other area of life, kind of like what you're saying, like when one member of the team is not doing well, it kind of like affects all the others, like the body, mind, and spirit. So she came in with like kind of overwhelmed, like this avalanche of stuff. But it really, when we got down to it, it was really like she got sick. And because of her belief, she didn't allow herself the rest or ask for the help that she needed because of these limiting beliefs that she was carrying, and just kind of like spiraled and got worse and went into all these other areas. So anyway, I was happy to support her through that. But you know what? As we close out, what is one thing you really want people to take away from this, Tana? If they were just going to take away one thing, what would you want it to be? And then just share how people can reach out and like connect with you if they want to work with you.
Okay. First, thank you for having me on, Amy. This has been a great experience. Thank you. I've enjoyed this. There was one thing I want people to take away with. It would probably be that that you were intentionally designed by God, and your temperaments are important. It's how you're wired. It's how you respond to the world. It's nothing random. It's not you're not a mistake by any means. And again, your temperament doesn't put you in a box. It actually is just a blueprint for how you should live. And I also think that as women, we need to be reminded that we're not broken and we don't need to be fixed. We just need to develop different ways of living, whether it's, in that 𝗪𝗓𝗄𝗎 framework or just delving into the temperaments, whatever. I think we just need to remember that is important. You can either reach out to me on Instagram or on Facebook. I'll put my stuff in the notes, or my website. I work with women one-on-one. I do group work, or I do temperament rooted spiritual growth work. I just basically help women become whole, rooted, restored, and spiritually grounded, so they can live in their God-given temperament. And then I'll also throw this out there for anybody that's watching. In May, I will be doing a virtual workshop. It's a 2-hour workshop. It's called Awareness, and it's an introduction to the temperaments. We go through your strengths, your weaknesses, your triggers, your ideal conditions, and your motivations. So if you're interested in that, just get a hold of me and I'll put you on the list. I haven't picked a date yet. If I feel like April is just going by so rapidly that I'm like, it's May already, but here we are.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know. Time goes by faster, they say, when you get older. I forgot why. I just heard that. There was an actual scientific reason behind it. Which kind of intrigued me. I was like, oh, that's why it feels like time goes by so fast. Thank you, Tana, for being here. And to anyone watching, Tana will put all her information in a comment on this post so that you can reach out to her. That 2-hour workshop sounds really interesting. So if you like have a link or have anything to give us on that, definitely give that to us. Let me see if there are any questions before we hang up. Tana, you've really been a gift, and I appreciate you sharing, because I think I don't know. I just imagine, I think people are struggling with understanding why they were, put on this earth, right? Like, I think the work I do is just declaring that you belong. Like, and from an inner child, because I'm more of with the inner child perspective, a lot of us don't believe that based on our upbringing, right? So we have to kind of get free and clear of however we were parented and decide that we are unique expressions of God and that we were created with value and purpose, every single one of us. So, this is you saying the exact same thing. And I don't know, I always like to simplify purpose. I think people are always kind of looking for this purpose, and I think they kind of connect it with a job or career, but really, I think in its simplest form, the way I like to think of it is we were all put on this earth to serve through our God-given gifts and talents. That's it. So like whether you decide to do that through a job, through a business, through a hobby, right? You can really, a lot of it is connecting it to something. Maybe you're charitably giving in some kind of a way. Maybe, who knows what it is, but you can intentionally decide that you have value and purpose and you can connect
Mhm.
it to any one of those things. Do you have anything to say to that, Tana? Because I'm a firm believer that you don't have to be in the business of or in a career where you're like living your purpose. You can kind of connect it to something else. I'm just curious, like what you would have to say while I look up to see if anyone's asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, our purpose doesn't have to be what we do every single day.
Right.
Like it can be, like you say, it can be doing charitable volunteer work. It can be doing those other little things outside of what we do, what our career is. But I feel like as long as our career is being fulfilling, it's not draining us, we're living in those strengths in a way, then yeah, I mean, our purpose can be multi-level, layered function. Um, I think it just boils down to, I mean, your purpose is what you want as long as it's fulfilling you.
Hmm. Yeah, it gets to fulfill us as well. I think that's the beauty of it, that it's
Hmm.
a gift to others, but it fulfills us. That's the most important piece. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alicia. I'm just going to say hi to you, Alicia Lynn. She's like, I'm joining live. I'm new here. If anyone has any questions for Tana, please leave them. Donna, thank you so much for being here with us. And I just want to leave that Tana will leave all her information in a comment. And I, as well, am running another weekend immersion of the inner child healing, a liberating journey to self-love and empowerment. And that's going to be June 5 to 7. So if that's something that interests you, just reach out. I will leave the link to the landing page in the comment as well. All right, Tana, you stay on. Everybody, bye. Thanks for being here with us.